Hello, my name is Sophie, and welcome to part 3 of a review and summary of the book Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. We made it! We made it to the third and final part that I didn't know was happening. I was going to make it in 2 parts, but then I talked for too long, and now here we are. A third part. So we're coming to the end of the book now. And I would recommend watching the first 2 parts because things might make a bit more sense if you do. But if not, I'm going to do a little summary of the events of the first 2 parts before we get into the last section of the book. That's the plan. The layout of this video is going to be a quick summary of the events from the past 2 videos. Then we're going to hop straight into the last bit of my summary. The trigger warnings are the same as they were in the previous 2 videos. I will just leave a note of them here, I think. So you can just double check, make sure we're all on the same page, we're all still feeling good. Let's get into the summary so that we can crack on with our final duel. In the first video, we met Selena, our main character, Adelin's assassin, the best to ever do it. She was in the salt mines of Endovia, serving life, and she was freed by Kale, the captain of the guard, and Dorian the prince, on the condition that she takes part in a competition against a bunch of criminals, doing all these tests to see who is the best, who's the best of the best, and whoever wins serves as the king's champion, does all his dirty work for a certain number of years, and then they are free to live their life. Off they go. But if they lose, they go back wherever they were before. So if she loses, she heads back to Endovia to serve out the rest of her life sentence. So she agrees. They head off to the castle so she can battle it out against all of the other people. We meet the champions. All of them are irrelevant other than Nox, who we like, he's cool, he's a thief, and Kane, who sucks and we hate him. We've done some tests. She's sticking it out in the middle because she has to compete under an alias, Lillian, because nobody can know that she's the best to ever do it. Otherwise, they will stop underestimating her because she's a girl. Anyways, the day before their first test, a champion was found unalive, and that was the beginning of a pattern in which a day or a couple of days before most of the tests, a champion has gone missing and then been found unalived by some unknown creature or person or something. However, for the majority of the first half of the book, that is just kind of an underlying plot point. It's not that relevant. We don't really find out much about it. On to the men. In our first video, her and Kale had gotten pretty close because they'd had like some forced proximity because he's mentoring her and all that. They kind of like each other. Anyway, Dorian was just MIA for pretty much the whole of the first video. We didn't see that guy. When we did, he just annoyed her. In the first video as well, Selena did befriend Nehemia, who is the princess of Ilway. The friendship started because Nehemia couldn't speak the common language, and so Selena was teaching her. They became friends through that. A couple of other plot points from the first video are that there was something weird going on with the clock tower. There's like these weird, strange symbols around the clock tower called word marks. Nehemia had told us that they were called word marks, but she supposedly didn't know anything about them. She just knew what they were called. And they keep popping up all over the place. And then the final major plot point that we ended off the first video with was that Selena had discovered a secret passage in her room while everyone else was like at a party. And she went down into the secret passage and it led to like 3 separate passages. One of them led out of the castle. One of them led to this grate that she could look through and see down into the hall where the feast was happening. And then the third one, she visited in a dream, and it led to the tomb of 2 very important historical figures.
Wow.
One of which, Elena, appeared to Selena in this dream and gave her a very pretty amulet to keep her safe, and also gave her a side quest, which was to find and defeat the evil in the castle. And Selena woke up and she was like, phew, that was a dream, thank goodness. And then she was holding the amulet in her hand. Oh, it wasn't a dream. And that was where we left off in the first video. Moving on to the second video. We opened up to Kale busting in on Selena, who had just woken up and was thinking, oh my god, there's a secret passage in my room that leads down to a tomb of 2 ancient historical figures, and one of them just appeared to me as a ghost and gave me a task. Help. Anyway, Kel busted in and he was like, where were you last night? And she was like, oh no, he knows. But it turned out that one of the other champions had been unalived and he suspected her, which was really rude because this person was not in a good way when they were found. And considering like the circumstances of all that, it's kind of offensive that he would have suspected her. But anyway, that was where we opened. Great. Celaena looks in the tomb and she finds nothing. We also find out that Cain knows who Celaena really is. This is bad. Early on in this second video as well, Celaena and Dorian have their first and second actual conversations. Shocking. We are moving quickly on with the relationship. Chaol also takes Celaena to look at the body of another unalive champion, and while she's looking, she uses her Adlan's assassin best to ever do it skills to deduce that whoever unalived this champion had summoned a creature that then took them out, which is new information. And she also saw that around this champion there were these word marks, which I mentioned earlier. Suspicious. We also see some more of Elena. She pops back up, gives Celaena some cryptic advice, which then helps her to win at a test. Great, thanks Elena. I also entered my Dorian hater arc in the second video because he starts doing a load of really dumb stuff, like he breeds dogs and one of them wasn't purebred and it also like wasn't very friendly, and so he was like, oh, I'm gonna have to unalive it. Thankfully Celaena did convince him not to, but still, what the hell, bro. Then Adlan's army unalived a bunch of Ilway rebels, so Nehemia was devastated. We had some more tests, we had some more unalived champions, things were moving on, and then Celaena found some word marks under her bed, and she was thinking, oh no, I'm being targeted. Then, to add some more poo-poo to the poo-poo pile, Nehemia reveals that she has in fact known how to speak Adlanian fluently this entire time. So she's just been lying to Celaena. Betrayal. And we also find out that Nehemia has in fact known how to read and how to use the word marks the entire book. Celaena's just taking hit after hit right now. She's not doing good. She's not having a great time, which was very sad because Nehemia was like her only friend. And as a result, Celaena does start suspecting her of being the one that's unaliving the champions because nobody else knew how to use the word marks, so who else is it going to be? Yulemas happened, which was basically Christmas. There was this big ball that Celaena was not invited to, but she was really worried that Nehemia was going to exact her revenge for the king unaliving loads of her people, and so naturally Celaena did infiltrate the ball, obviously in a fabulous dress. Nehemia did not take anyone out, but Celaena did end up dancing with Dorian the entire night. Chaol was very upset about this because he's got a bit of a crush, you know? The love triangle is love triangling. After the ball, Dorian decides that he's just madly in love with Celaena now. They have their first kiss at like 3 o'clock in the morning after the ball. Then Duke Perrington, who is like one of the king's close advisors, he came with Dorian and Chaol when they went to pick up Celaena from Endovia, and he is also the sponsor of Cain. Cain is Perrington's champion. So I wonder who told Cain who Celaena really was. Anyway, Perrington enlists the help of Caltaine, who is this snake. She is after Dorian's hand in marriage. She wants to marry Dorian, and she will stop at nothing to achieve this goal. She's driven. She's got that going for her at least. But he enlists her help to ensure that Cain wins the final duel, because we're coming up on the final duel now. And in this duel, before they fight, they both drink a toast to the gods or something, and Perrington asks Caltaine to put a little something something in Celaena's wine to dull her senses so that Cain can win. And because Caltaine is single-minded, she is driven, and also a snake, she naturally agrees. This cannot have any negative repercussions for Celaena, surely. Next, while Celaena's doing some research in a book on some word marks, and she finds the symbols that she'd seen around the unalived champion earlier, along with this note explaining how to carry out sacrifices to this creature called a Ridorak. It turns out that if you write the symbols around this victim, the Ridorak, in exchange for the flesh of this person, will grant you their strength. Interesting. Celaena decides that it must be Nehemia, and that she must be using these secret passages that she found earlier to travel around the castle with this creature and unalive the champions. So naturally she heads down there with sheer will and like this tiny little makeshift weapon. And it turns out it's Kane.
Huh.
And then Kane shuts her in the room with this Riderack, and she's like, oh no, I'm going to be taken out. But she manages to defeat it, except she does get bitten a little bit. She gets a little bit nibbled on her hand, and that would be fine, except that the Riderack's teeth do contain like some poison or something.
Oh.
So she gets back to her room, collapses, she passes out, but then Nehemia saves her. Yay! So now they're friends again. It's all coming together. This is good. We've defeated the Riderack, we've made up with Nehemia again, and now all we need to do is beat Kane in the duel. Easy. Celaena explains to Nehemia who she really is, so now they're bestianas again. Then Nehemia gives Celaena this special name that has like great meaning in Ilway, and she calls her Elentia, which means spirit that cannot be broken or something similar along those lines. And now their friendship has been solidified. They're in it together forever. Just before we left off, Celaena had convinced Nox to leave because she knows things are about to get rough. She's like, I would go if I were you. And he was like, okay. So he does go. And we left off just before the final duel. It's happening. And then whoever wins becomes the King's champion. And that's it. And so, grab your snacks, grab your blanket, grab your little drinky. Let's get on to this final duel. Oh. So we left off last time just before the final duel, but the night before, we have a little cinematic moment with Celaena where she like stares out the window again. It's called being a main character. She's told the guards at her door to not let anyone in, even Kael and Dorian. Shocking. And she thinks about how far she's come and how much she's changed since she first got here from Endovia, and she realizes that maybe she doesn't just want to stay in the castle to earn her freedom. Maybe there's something else. And I wonder what that could be. Get your mind out the gutter. It's not because she fancies any of these men. It's for the friends she made along the way. But is it though? Anyway, enough of the sentimentality. We jumped to chapter 47, and now we are in Kaltain's POV. It's the morning of the duel. They've decided last minute to move it outside, which is odd, and Kaltain's not happy about it because she's cold. Despite the freezing conditions, she is ready to poison Celaena's drink. Duke Parrington comes over and he kisses Kaltain's hand. When he does, her cloak comes up as she lifts her hand up, and she uses the cover that gives her to like just tip the poison in there. Now I will say, they must be pretty confident that Celaena is going to beat whoever she fights in the first round, because obviously there's still 4 champions left. So that means there's going to be 2 rounds of duels. The winners of the first round then go into the final round. So they must be certain that she's going to make it into that second round in order to have already poisoned the drink that she's going to be sipping. You know? The organisers must have been informed that Celaena is in fact the best to ever do it. Of course she's going to win. And so they were like, don't even need to wait for the first round. Let's just poison her drink now. But yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't have waited for the first round to be over, so that we definitely know for sure, unless they were going to poison whoever Kane was fighting against, so that he definitely won. But from Kaltain and Parrington's conversation, it sounded like they were pretty much just targeting Celaena, but it's fine. We head back over to Celaena's POV, and Celaena is also annoyed that the duel's outside. She had not been informed, and not only is it outside, but it's also right next to the freaky clock tower. Suspicious. Anyway, there's quite an audience to decide the King's champion. There's like 13 people. Obviously, you got like the King and Parrington, Kaltain, Dorian, Kael, and Nehemia. Nehemia's there as well, which is really sweet because she brought her staff with her to like honor Celaena as a fellow warrior.
Aww.
Friendship goals. But I guess there's a load of other councilmen as well as like witnesses or whatever. This is a public affair now. The king then does a little speech. Great, because that's exactly what we wanted from him. You were taken from your miserable lives, so you might prove yourself worthy of becoming a sacred warrior to the crown. I'm not sure why he's speaking like this. I don't think he was speaking like this in the previous videos, but just go with it, I guess. After months of training, the moment has come to decide who my champion shall be. You will face each other in a duel. You can win only by trapping your opponent in a position of short and no further, he added with a sharp glance in her direction. Rude. Rude, especially considering the fact that he's literally just had someone poison Selena. Like, okay, hypocrite. Anyways, Kane and Renault, who is some other guy, are gonna fight first, and then Selena will fight Grave, who was one of Kane's cronies. Rah. Obviously, Kane wins the fight against Renault, but then we get onto the fight between Selena and Grave. Selena goes to take the normal generic sword that she uses from Kale, but instead, he pulls out his own sword and offers it to her to fight with. Oh, sweet. Love this man. It's so cute. Bless his little soul. That's just so sweet because that sword is like his prized possession. You know that that man spends every spare minute sharpening and polishing that sword, and he's just offering it to her to use. Anyway. However, then the most awkward scene in the whole freaking book arises, because as Selena goes to take Kale's sword, Nehemia comes and taps her on the shoulder and is like, don't use that. Use this. And offers her staff.
Oh my gosh!
So now Selena has to decide between using Bestiana's staff or Kale's sword. Now, personally, I know which one I'm going for. It's the sharp object, not the stick. But then Nehemia does a very meaningful speech about, let it be with an Ilwe weapon that you take them down, or some symbolism. And Selena's sold. Unfortunately, she does end up going with Nehemia's staff, and Kale is rejected yet again. This man just cannot catch a break. I was very upset about this because it was so sweet that he offered his sword, and then Selena's like, oh, thanks, but anyways, I'm gonna take this stick instead. I get it though, it's like meaningful and stuff, but still, I was a little bit disappointed, and also that was just super awkward. But yeah, Selena takes the staff and she's like, yeah, I can work with this. Work with this? Girl, give it back and take the sword. You need the best possible chance you can get. This is your life. This is your freedom that you're fighting for. Don't use the stick, I beg. But she does. Anyway. She does soothe the blow of rejecting Kale, though, when she says, no matter what happens, she said quietly, I want to thank you. Kale tilted his head to the side. For what? Her eyes stung, but she blamed it on the fierce wind and blinked away the dampness. For making my freedom mean something. He didn't say anything. He just took the fingers of her right hand and held them in his thumb brushing the ring she wore.
Aww.
That's so cute. I forgive you. I forgive you, Selena, for not taking the sword, because that was really sweet. Pull yourselves together, because it's time to duel. So she heads into the ring and thinks, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into, little man. Yes, exactly. Obviously, she demolishes Grave. Come on. Come on. Imagine if she lost. That would be crazy. Imagine if she'd lost against Grave. That would be so anticlimactic. Then we wouldn't have a book. But thankfully, she does win. I still don't get why she chose the wooden staff, though, because it's literally already breaking, and she's barely used it. She fully hears it snap halfway through that battle. Give it back and pick up the sword, I beg of you. Anyway, not only does she physically destroy Grave, but she also verbally destroys him. She does like a great winning speech where she tells him who she really is, and she's like, I'm Selena Sardothian, you little bitch. Blah, blah, blah. And then she pulls out a handkerchief, don't know where she's been hiding that, drops it on his chest and is like, you can keep that. And then she walks off. Yes. She gets out of the ring, the fighting ring, and Kel's like, was that necessary? And she's like, why, yes, of course. What do you mean? Kaltain then gives them the wine, and Selena just drinks it. There's not even a moment of hesitation there. She's just like, thanks, girl. We literally had a poisons test a week ago, and that was the worst poison. She's put Bloodbane in there. I thought, have we learned nothing? Jojo, have you learned nothing? No, we haven't learned anything, because we still drank the wine. Yeah, and then they're straight into the duel. She doesn't get a break. Bear in mind, Kane's just had a break because he dueled first, and then he got to watch Selena duel. Obviously, we know that if they had given her a break, the poison would have started acting before they'd started fighting. And so she could have said, I don't feel well, something's amiss and they can't afford for that to happen. So they just send her straight in. But everyone is like, what? Why no break? But we do what the king tells us. So we're straight in there. And that was smart of them because as soon as the duel starts, she is feeling it. She's feeling sick. She's feeling sluggish. She's feeling lightheaded and dizzy. And she gets about one good shot in before Kane just starts demolishing her. Kaltain laughs, which is super rude. And then Selena's like, oh, so she me. Great, great, great. Kane snaps the staff in about 2 seconds, because of course he does. It's a piece of wood, and he chucks the iron-tipped end out of the ring. So now she literally just has a stick. I said she should have picked the sword. When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences? Now. And then to add insult to injury, he pops her shoulder out. And so now her arm's just like flapping around. Ow, 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 ow.
Wow.
Ouch. We do get a Dorian POV. He is just standing at the edge of the ring thinking, oh no, I need to stop this. But then he's not stopping it because he's like, if I stop it, then they could maybe say that Kane's won by default, and he can't let that happen because then Selena will go back to Endovia. So he's just standing there watching helplessly and being like, oh, ah, ugh, as Selena's just being like beaten into a pulp. Then we hop over to Kale's POV because we've got to know what both the boys are thinking about this whole situation. And he's horrified as well. And he's even more horrified when Kane starts bringing up like all this traumatic stuff about Selena's past and her parents, like really specific things about their unaliving. He should not know. And yet he's coming out with all of it. And so now she's on the floor and she's like crying now as well from pain and also from emotional trauma. You couldn't have just beaten her into a pulp and called it a day. You couldn't have just whooped her ass and then been like, cool, I win. See ya. It's a bad day for our girl. And it's not going to get any better because she's realized now what's happening, that Kane could have won quite a while ago and he's just choosing not to. And she's like, oh, okay, he's going to unalive me. Nobody's going to stop it. And I just have to lay here and take it. Great, because she can't move because the room's spinning and her shoulder's flapping around and she's having like traumatic flashbacks. And everyone is just standing there like, cool, cool. Nobody's been like, I think he's won actually. I think we can stop now. Nope. Sorry, girl. No one's gonna save you. Kane chucks her into the clock tower and everything goes black. And then there's just this creepy like demon guy standing where Kane was. And she's like, ooh, so now I'm hallucinating as well. Great. There's nothing I can do. And she just accepts her fate and waits for him to unalive her. However, just when she has given up, Kale, he crouches on the other side of the line and slides his fingers right to the edge of the line of chalk and tells her to get up. Moving her arm made sparks dance before her eyes, but she extended it until her fingertips reached the line of chalk and stayed there, not a quarter of an inch from Kale, the thick white mark separating them. She lifted her eyes to his face and found his gaze lined with silver. Get up, was all he said. And in that moment, somehow his face was the only thing that mattered. She stirred and couldn't stop her sob as her body erupted with pain that made her lie still again. But she kept her focus on his brown eyes, on his tightly pressed lips as they parted, and whispered, Get up. I love that man. You don't see Dorian crouching by that line, do you? It's Kale. Kale in the trenches for her. Again. Kale, prepared to be rejected by her. Again. Crouching by that line of chalk, telling her to get up. And she does. She does get up. Good on you, girl. And Kane's like, cool. And then he just slams her against the clock tower again. Girl's not even fully up. He's just like, I see you're trying to stand. Let me help you. Whoom. And now suddenly she's back in this freaky dark world and Kane is like this demon guy again. Now there's even more demon things. He's like got an army gathered with him, which is bad, and they start attacking her and she's like, oh, maybe I'm not hallucinating because ow, this is hurting actually. Maybe this is real. Uh-oh. And I feel we should put 2 and 2 together. In our previous videos when Elena was explaining that the clock tower is a portal and the gargoyles on top of the clock tower are the guardians of said portal. So perhaps the reason that this jewel was moved outside right by the clock tower is because that is where the portal is. And that means that Cain can become a demon man and attack her and stuff. So yeah, I'm thinking that every time she's being whacked into the clock tower, it's shifting her between being in this world and then being this alternative world where Cain is like a demon man and there are these demon creatures. It's not great. It's not great for our girl. She's at a disadvantage here because she's just one gal. And he's got like a whole army going on. That doesn't seem fair.
Wait a minute.
Just to top it all off, Cain goes to grab her neck, grabs her amulet instead, rips it off. Her one protection's gone. Now she's completely submerged in this demon world. And the army of Cain's demons are just coming straight at her. Ooh. We head into chapter 49 now. Dorian's POV, and he is very confused because rather than Cain whooping Selena's butt, Selena's on the ground thrashing around like rah, 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 and Cain's just standing ominously over her, smiling. Ugh. I don't know about you, but I don't like it. It does sound like it would be a pretty goofy watch though. Rather than a battle, you just have like one of them on the ground like no, no, and the other one's just like. And he's thinking, is there something going on that I'm not seeing? Yes. Yes, there is. And as he's thinking this, Nehemia moves up next to him. She's like tracing symbols with her hands under her cloak. I feel it's very reminiscent of that scene in Harry Potter where Harry is hanging off his broom during that Quidditch match and Snape's like trying to help him by like doing the spell under his cloak and then they set his cloak on fire. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but it reminds me of that a lot. And it's at this point that Dorian twigs that Selena is just kind of waiting to be unalived at this point, and he's like, oh no. Anyway, and she is. We're back in her POV. She's in this demon world, just waiting to be unalived, because what's she supposed to do? I don't blame her. She might be the best to ever do it. She might be Adlan's assassin, but she's now got a whole army of demons to fight, and the odds are just not in her favor. And just when it all feels over, there is no hope. A bunch of doors bust open. I don't know. And Elena comes through. She appears. She pushes all of the demons and Cain and everyone. She pushes them all back with this big wind. Then she takes the poison out of Selena. Yay! She's not tripping balls anymore. This is so exciting. So even though she's beaten to a pulp, she is not on. Thanks, Elena. We love you. And for a cherry on top, she rolls the metal tipped bit of the staff back to Selena like, there you go, girl. So now she also has a weapon.
Yay!
And she's back. Our girl is back in business. She is ready to fight. Even though her arm is hanging off, she's emotionally drained and physically damaged. Nothing can stop her now because her mind is intact again. Just. And finally, because Elena is our hero, she like blasts Cain's demon form out of existence. And so now he's just a guy again. Thank you, Elena. We love you, girl. Elena poofs away. And Selena is back in business. She's back in the normal world. She's not on anymore. And Cain is just a man. She's ready to go. Let's get it, girl. Chapter 50. Our girl is up and she is ready to fight. Duh. And there's also this blue mark shining on her forehead. Not sure what that's about, but at least she's standing. And she just absolutely demolishes him in a matter of seconds. He's on the floor and she's pointing the stake at his throat. And as she stands there with this stake there, like an absolute state, her arms hanging down, covered in she's not in a good way. And Cain's like on the floor in shock. And all these councilmen just start nervously clapping, like And even though he's not happy about it, the king declares her the winner. Then Nehemia collapses. And Selena's legs give way and she falls on the floor and then she starts like maniacally laughing, which is unnerving, but that's okay. She's traumatized. Dorian runs over to Selena and he calls for a healer, but as he does that, he misses Cain and the king looking at each other. And the king nods at Cain and Cain whips out a secret knife and tries to stab her in the back. Literally. But luckily, Cale did see. He steps straight in front of Cain and takes him out with his sword. So, let's think about this. It's a good thing that Celaena did not use Cale's sword, because then he wouldn't have had it to defend her with. So, everything happens for a reason. I've come to peace with it now. So yeah, Cale saves her and unalives Cain instead. However, this is the first time he has ever unalived anyone, and he is just immediately traumatized. A couple of his men have to drag him away. Poor guy. I am quite surprised that he's never taken anyone out before, because he is the captain of the guard, but there's a first time for everything. After this ordeal, Dorian carries Celaena back to her room, and he thinks to himself, he was done with politics and intrigue. He loved her, and no empire, no king, and no earthly fear would keep him from her. No, if they tried to take her from him, he'd rip the world apart with his bare hands. And for some reason, that didn't terrify him.
Oh
no. Anyway, we head back to Kaltain's point of view, and she's just befuddled at the fact that Celaena won and is still living. She's also really mad about it. So naturally, she goes up to Duke Perrington and is like, hey, yo, what the hell happened back there? And she thrusts this vial of poison that she used at Duke Perrington and says, I thought you said this would work. Duke Perrington looks at the vial and he looks at her and he's like, oh, what is that? And Kaltain says, duh. It's the poison you gave me to give to Celaena, you idiot. How could you have forgotten? That was 5 minutes ago. She's thinking, this guy is stupid. And Duke Perrington, he had us all fooled. We all thought he was stupid. But he looks at Kaltain and says, poison? You poisoned her? Why would you do that? Oh my god, the snake has been snaked. The snake has been snaked by the guy who was supposedly courting her.
Oh my god!
OMG. And then she's taken off to the dungeons for trying to unalive Celaena. So Perrington has fully duped her and then pinned all of the blame on her. Okay, you gotta respect him. But yikes, that's rough for Kaltain. The next chapter is Dorian's POV, and he's having a meeting with his father. He wants to know what's gonna happen to Cale for unaliving Cain. Thankfully, nothing, but when he asks about Celaena, his dad's all like, well, maybe I shouldn't give her the position, considering she couldn't even tell that there was poison in her wine. And I'm kind of on the same page as him. She literally had a poison test a week ago, and she won. So you'd have thunk that she would have known some of that stuff, but apparently not. Dorian is super pissed that his dad is smack-talking Celaena, so bro bares his teeth. And that is so intimidating that his dad fully sits back down on his throne and is like, whoa, okay, you may have a point. You're telling me, terrifying dictator king man, the ruler of the whole continent, the guy who has taken over all of the land, banned magic, he was so intimidated at his son going that he sat back down and was like, okay. Dorian's clearly got something about him that I don't, because I fear I'm not giving terrifying. How else does one bare their teeth? There's no other way, it's literally that. It's goofy as hell. Anyway, it's fine though, because he was just kidding. The king was just kidding. She has got the position. It's all good. Nobody panic. So yay. She is the king's champion now. Next, we hop back over to Celaena's point of view, and she's just woken up and she is in pain. She's got her arm in a sling and her face is all swollen and she's not doing well. Nehemia comes to visit her and explains that she is the one that saved Celaena at the duel by opening up a portal that allowed Elena to come through, do her magic and suck all the poison out of her and give her the staff and all that jazz. It turns out that Nehemia could actually see all of the demon creatures because of her powers, and because Celaena was off her face on Bloodbane, she could also see them as well.
Wow.
In response to this, Celaena is like, so why did you pretend you couldn't speak our language this whole time? And I'm like, I thought we'd have some more questions about all that other stuff, but okay. Nehemia explains that it was a defense mechanism so that she could listen into other people's conversations because they didn't think she could understand them, and because of that, They said a lot of things that they wouldn't have said otherwise. Turns out she's a low-key, high-key here to spy. Nehemia also drops a bit of personal lore that her and her whole family can use the word marks, but they only do so as a last resort and they keep it a secret. She also reveals that this whole time she has been sending all of the creatures that Cain has summoned back to where they came from because he's just been summoning them and then letting them run rampant. I don't know how nobody else has stumbled upon them. And she also put the word marks under Celaena's bed as a protection spell. Nehemia is the real hero of this story. She's been working overtime. Girl's been running around after Cain, sending all of these creatures back, and she's also been protecting Celaena. Then she saved her life at the duel, and she's also spying on the king. Whew. Damn. Okay. Nehemia also asks about the mark that had burned on Celaena's head during the duel, and Celaena was like, I don't know. Do you know? And Nehemia was like, no, I don't know. It's definitely a word mark, but Nehemia doesn't know what it means. And finally, she returns the Eye of Elena to Celaena that one of her guards had picked up after the duel. Yay! Thank you, girl. Bestie honors forever. Celaena's still in bed the next day when Dorian comes to visit her. He feels super bad about the fact that he didn't stop the fight when he realized something was wrong. And Celaena's like, stop being so stupid. There was nothing you could have done. Celaena asks how Kale is. And Dorian says that he's fine, but he has taken the last 2 days off of work.
Oh my gosh!
Someone go check on that man. He is not okay. What do you mean he's taken the last 2 days off of work? He's in a personal crisis. We need to have him watched 24/7. Anyway, Dorian and Celaena have a little cuddle and he kisses her and all she can think is it made her jaw hurt. Bruh. This relationship is over. Give up now. He's out here going, I'm so in love with her. There's nothing I wouldn't do for her. Blah, blah, blah. And she's thinking, ow. Kissing him makes my jaw hurt.
Wow.
He is in for an unpleasant surprise at some point in the near future. Anyway, then we have a king POV. And he is sitting on his throne and stroking his sword like a creepy creep. He's having a secret villain meeting with Perrington. Ooh. In their secret villain meeting, they're talking about Caltaine and Cain. And from the sounds of what they're saying, they've been manipulating her mentally using some kind of power. This is suspicious. Could this be what was causing her headaches? Is that why she was so down to help Perrington poison Celaena? This power that they were using to manipulate Caltaine was also being used on Cain, but in a more physical way. I wonder, could this have something to do with those black rings that they kept mentioning? You know, the king had a big black ring on, Perrington had a big black ring on, Cain had a big black ring on. I wonder. And earlier on in the book, when Celaena had been staring out of the corridor window cinematically, Cain had come over and he was acting all freaky, he was holding his neck, he was choking, and then he just scurried away like a little rabbit at top speed. Could that have been something to do with this whole manipulation power thing that they were using on him? Was it that none of how he was acting was actually him, and it was them manipulating him? Could he have like broken free of their power for a second there? And that was why he was acting so terrified, because he'd suddenly come back to himself and was freaking out a bit? And maybe the power they were using on Caltaine was more subtle. I don't know. It also turns out that the king has known this whole time about word marks. He's been using them. They're old news to him. It's a bit of an anticlimax. He doesn't know what the mark on Celaena's head had meant in the duel though. But no one else knows what it means either. Chapter 53. It's been a week since the duel, and Celaena's been resting up and also prepping to have free will and money once she's officially the king's champion. She spent a lot of time with Nehemia and Dorian, but has not seen anything of Cale until today, when he comes to visit her. Yay! She asks if he's okay, and he's obviously not, but because he's a man, he's like, yeah, of course I am. Rah. And Celaena thanks him for saving her life. Aww. And he's all like, it's fine, it was nothing, I did what I had to do. And then he tries to leave, like a little bitch. But she grabs him and hugs him, and it's so sweet. Bless their hearts. She only saw the haunted gleam in his eyes before she threw her arms around his neck and held him tightly. He straightened, but she crushed her body into his, even though it still aggravated her wounds to do so. Then, after a moment, his arms wrapped around her, keeping her close to him. So close that as she shut her eyes and breathed him in, she couldn't tell where he ended and she began. Now, you do not hear her complaining about it hurting like she was when Dorian kissed her earlier, do you? No, you do not. I fear that speaks volumes. They are in love, and you cannot convince me otherwise. But obviously, Dorian then interrupts, because he always interrupts. And Kel runs away, because he always runs away. And as Kale leaves, Dorian's like, I don't think he's okay. And Selena looks at him and is like, you think? You've been friends with him for how long? Anyway, the reason Dorian's here is because his father has finally drawn up a contract and Selena's gonna sign it tomorrow, so she will officially be the King's champion. Yeah! And Dorian's all like, I guess we're gonna be stuck together for a little bit longer. Selena's response to that is, I can't be with you if I'm the King's champion. Oh. And Dorian's like, I'm sorry? What? And Selena explains that, she's got a lot going on at the moment. She's not going to have much time for a relationship while she's working towards her freedom. She's going to be gone in 4 years anyway, so what's the point? Dorian's like, okay. Obviously, he's super taken aback because a couple of pages ago, this man was like, I would burn the world for her. There is nothing that will keep us apart. Rah, rah. And now Selena's like, well, I'm going to be gone in 4 years anyway, so I don't think there's really any point in us being together, I do feel really bad for Dorian here. I know he has his faults, but he clearly really cared for her, and she's kind of done him dirty here. I feel like she's led him on a little bit because we were in her head. We knew that her affections weren't the same for him as his were towards her. It's just a shame. And she does feel bad for not feeling bad, but she's just too excited about being free for the first time in her life, and that's kind of valid. It's sad, but it's valid. But yeah, poor Dorian, honestly. Next up, we head into Kale's POV, and he's back in Selena's room looking for Dorian so that he can explain that when he'd caught them hugging earlier, it wasn't what it looked like. But when he gets there, Dorian's not there. Surprise, surprise. And Selena tells him, you're not going to be seeing him here anymore. And when Kale asks why, she's like, well, I ended things. And he's like, oh no, what, why? And this woman is insane. She's insane. She looks at Kale, the captain of the guard, and says, and I quote, I'm the King's champion. Surely you realize how inappropriate it would be for me to have a relationship with a prince. Emphasis on prince.
Oh my gosh!
This woman is insane. Even Kale notices that she emphasizes the word prince. He's like, wonder what she could mean by that. It means she's coming for you next, my guy. You better watch out, buddy. Good luck. She is a force of nature. Holy smokes. We hop into her head next, anyway. And she's having another non-dream kind of situation. And she's in the tomb with Elena. Elena asks how she's feeling. And Selena's like, yeah, I'm okay, And she asks Elena, why do you want me to be the King's champion so badly? Elena's all cryptic about it, as she always is. She's like, the people need you. And Selena's like, okay, well, thanks for saving me, girl boss, And Elena says, blood ties can't be broken. Huh? So this means they are related. Ooh, interesting. We've made it, guys. Chapter 55. The final chapter. We never thought we'd get here, but here we are. And Selena is signing the contract with the king. The specifics are, she must serve as his champion for 4 years and do everything that he asks without question. And then she will be free. She can go and live her life and do her own thing. And she's thinking she had defeated him. She had sinned against his empire and now would emerge victorious. Right. However, life just isn't like that sometimes. And the king comes down from his throne and he walks right up to her so only she can hear. And he whispers in her ear that if she doesn't do exactly as he says, he will unalive Kale. And then he will also unalive Nehemia. And then he will also unalive Nehemia's family, just for good measure. So, that puts a little bit of a dampener on the vibes, We were up here, and now we're kind of down there. Nobody likes blackmail, nobody likes threats. But, she signs the contract anyway, because she doesn't really have another choice. And then that's it. The end. We made it. We did it, guys. I'm so proud of us. We've come so far. Thank you for being here. We did this. We got through this together. Okay, I have a few final thoughts to discuss before I leave you in peace. I feel it goes without saying that I really love this book. I adore this series. I love the characters. They hold a very special place in my heart. And I would absolutely recommend this book, regardless of the couple of plot holes that we've discussed throughout. And this is definitely a series that builds throughout. You know, as it goes, I think it gets better and better. And I think that you could say the same for most of Sarah's books, especially A Court of Thorns and Roses. I feel like that one just gets better as you go. Overall, I would absolutely recommend it, and I would absolutely recommend the series as a whole. A couple of thoughts to leave us with before we get into the second book in this series, which is A Crown of Midnight. I am currently working on the script as we speak. A couple of plot points that are definitely going to carry on into the next book. I feel we definitely have not seen the last of Elena, especially with the whole comment about blood ties and they can't be broken. So she's definitely going to be back. I'm sure she'll have some more side quests for our girl. It's a shame about the whole Dorian thing. That is a bummer. Although I have kind of been an unsubtle Kale supporter this whole time, so I can't say I was that mad, but poor guy and all that. Hopefully he can move on. We've also been left with a kind of cliffhanger in the whole what's going on with the king and Parrington and Caltaine and Kane. Maybe it's got something to do with the chunky black rings that they were all wearing, possibly. What is this strange power that he's been using to control them? I'm sure that's going to come up again. And of course, we have our girl Selena. How is she going to get on being the king's champion? How's she going to feel unaliving for him? We'll have to find out. I think that's all. I think that's all I have to say. I think I finally exhausted myself. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending this amount of time, if you're still here, watching a video that I made. That's so cool. I hope that you had fun. I hope that I was entertaining to some degree. Yeah, and I hope that you'll be back. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. And I hope to see you back here next time. Bye!